Welcome back to Visceral, and today we're talking about the 2014 record from Yes, Heaven and Earth. This is a tough review to do, partially because I'm a really big Yes fan. I like a lot of their music. I wasn't always a Yes fan. In fact, when I was in high school, I had some friends who were getting really into prog rock. You know, they go to head shops and places to buy some vinyl records, which were really, really cheap at the time because who wanted to listen to prog rock in the 90s, especially if it was on vinyl? And it wasn't until maybe about 10 or 15 years ago that I really started to get interested in the style. And Yes was one of those bands that I got a bit religious about. It was also coincided at a nice time for buying vinyl because I would say now if you go to a record shop and you're just digging through vinyl bins, people seem to have picked up a lot of the prog records, but when I started finding some of this stuff, it was all in the dollar bin. So I basically picked up every King Crimson record, every one from Yes, Jethro Tull, and all that. So it was a good time to buy some music. So I'm a Yes fan, and this record is a bit controversial. I would say a lot of Yes fans don't like it. It's not one that is going to be seen as some of their best work by any means, although I think there are a few little gems, or there's some great ideas here. But let me give you a little background on this record. So this came out in 2014, as I mentioned before, and this is really the first record that the band recorded together with the current or the newest vocalist, someone by the name of John Davison. He was on the previous record they made, Fly From Here, although he wasn't really a part of the songwriting process for that record. And so this piece here, this really is kind of his voice coming through Yes. Yes is not the kind of band where, well, if one member leaves, we have to close up shop and we can't call ourselves Yes anymore. In fact, if you know anything about Yes, you know that there has been multiple members throughout the years. And in fact, there's whole Yes records where there might just be one member that we recognize as a member of Yes. There was a time when some of the members of Yes went off and formed under a different name. There's all kinds of that drama. I won't get into all that today. But John Davison, who is the current singer, he really stepped up to fill in for John Anderson, who was, I would say, probably the kind of quintessential Yes singer. He's on most of their records. John Anderson has had some health problems, and so he hasn't been able to tour as much as Yes would have liked. And even though, yes, all these members are in their late 60s, or at least everyone but John Davison, they still have a pretty busy touring schedule. They're recording all the time. They're going out. They're on cruises, all that kind of stuff. So they needed someone who was young enough to be able to handle the road. Unfortunately, too, this is also the very last Yes record with Chris Squire, the bassist who died in 2015. So, unfortunately, this is going to be the last statement from Yes with him as a member. And even though it's controversial, at least it's not a super liked record within the Yes catalog, it actually sold pretty well. It peaked at number 20 in the UK, and it was actually the highest charting record that they put out since 1994's Talk, which is pretty surprising. And it actually entered the US charts at number 26. Steve Howe, the guitarist from Yes, said this about the recording of this record. Heaven and Earth has a freshness and different stance from many records we've done before. Hopefully, the freshness will be enjoyed. He also mentioned that there really aren't as many epics on this record, and I think that is actually one of the reasons why it's not well liked. If you've seen Yes in the last decade, like I mentioned before, they're getting older and they have a huge back catalog that they can pull from. And a lot of their recent tours have focused on, well, we're just going to play in this record a few new songs, but we're going to play everything from Fragile and Close to the Edge. We're just going to hit every single song from those records that you really, really love. And that's cool. I do like, that when a band plays the songs that we all love, but it also reeks a little bit of, hey, here's some nostalgia. Here's some things that remember when we were really, really awesome and doing great things. Let's play those songs for you. And on those tours, they don't actually play the entirety of those tracks. It would be a really long tour if we listened to all of Close to the Edge, all of Fragile, plus some new stuff. They play some abridged versions of these songs. And this record, Heaven on Earth, it also feels like that as well. Like here's just some kind of pop focus or shorter versions of Yes music. So let's talk about a couple tracks off this record. I hope I don't sound too negative with this record because, like I said, it's not their best. I wouldn't even say it's a good record, but it does have some standout moments that are worthy of taking a listen to, even if you're not a huge Yes fan and you're not going to buy everything that they release. So we're off to a bad start with the very first song, a track called Believe Again. And on this song, I knew right away when I put it in the CD player, I thought, uh-oh, we're playing it really, really safe on this record. It's very slow. It's glacial almost in its pacing. It feels like it could be a much better song if it was a lot faster. It's just boring.
So I climbed to the height of a mountain line. Is there a vision here?
The second track and my second favorite song on the record is a song called The Game. And this song actually sounds kind of similar to the music that was on some of the early John Anderson solo records, which also sound kind of Yes-like as well. But it's when the vocals come in from John Davison that you can see he's not quite up to par with John Anderson. His vocals just don't carry the same bravado. They don't have the same volume to it. And it's unfortunate because the song actually has some interesting ideas. It's pretty much like a Yes pop song. But I think the vocals generally let me down.
It's more to do than to say the love we gave along the way. Through fleeting days and all that grays, it's times like these as true loves.
The third track and my least favorite song on this record is a song called Step Beyond. And unfortunately, if you would have told me that this song was a local Yes cover band or someone just trying to ape their sound but not doing it as well, just maybe latching on to the less interesting bits of Yes, I would have said, okay, yeah, that sounds exactly right. And it's unfortunate that it's on this record. I mean, with a lot of these songs on this record, I feel like they could have had a really fine little EP. They could have taken the 3 or 4 best tracks, but instead they padded it out with some really embarrassing stuff. And this one, even though Steve Howe has some interesting guitar licks here, once I hear that synth line, I think, oh my goodness, what am I in for with the rest of this record?
Resistant to reach out from behind our wall. Elevated right leads to up. We settle for small, blind identity, forgetting all that.
I don't really care for a lot of the songs in the middle, but my favorite song is actually buried right at the end of the record, and it's the closest track to a prog song from Yes's glory years, and it's a track called Subway Walls. It has a really interesting kind of guitar line that carries it all the way to the end. In fact, it really builds to something and it explodes right as the track finishes. I'm not too big on the bass line here, which again is kind of sad because this is Chris Squire's last record, the last song on the last record that he recorded, and I'm not a huge fan of it. It sounds kind of like what something I would have imagined being played at a Fish concert in the 1990s. But overall, this track actually has some really interesting ideas. Musically, it has some just some creative playing. I think they're much more selective with the vocals, which is helpful as well, and they let some of the instrumentation, something that Yes is known for, they let that shine through. So I think it's actually a pretty good way to end this record. So I wasn't a huge fan of Heaven and Earth, although I still keep it in my collection. I still love Yes. I'll probably see them live again. At this point, it's pretty much just Steve Howe in the band. Everyone else is either retired or unfortunately deceased. So tell me what you think down below. Is this a Yes record that what you were happy with, or did it also let you down? Are there some other Yes records that are underappreciated and we should talk about more? So until next time.